It's been about 3 years ago that Seth called one morning. He said, "Hey, Dad, would it be okay if I bring the van over and park it in the parsonage driveway and change the brakes?" I thought, yeah, I told him, I said, "Yeah, go ahead and bring it on over." And so a couple hours later, he pulled in the driveway and got out, got the jack out, jacked the van up, and had one of the rear wheels pulled off of it. I walked down the steps down to the driveway, and I said, "Seth, where did you learn to change brake pads?" Knowing that he hadn't learned it from me, I said, "Seth, where did you learn to do this?" He pulled out his phone, fired it up, pulled up a YouTube video that showed exactly how to do it for the make and model and year of the vehicle he owned. And not only did it show how to do it, it told you the tools you needed to do it as well. There's no doubt about it, folks, I'm a dinosaur. There's no doubt about it, I'll admit it. I am. A colleague in ministry, and now the district superintendent of the Mon Valley District, Amy Shanholzer, I saw one day, we're friends on Facebook, and she was asking about how to repair a shorted out lamp. The next day the lamp was repaired. Guess where she figured out how to do it? The YouTube video. And most recently, before putting down laminate flooring in the kitchen, I thought if Seth can do it, I can do it too. So I went to YouTube, and guess what? I found a gazillion tutorials on how to lay laminate flooring. Maybe you can teach this old dog a few new tricks. Maybe. There are millions. I was absolutely amazed. Not only did Seth change brake pads now, but he's done CV joints. He's done all kinds of work on Tria's vehicles. There are just millions of these tutorials out there. But all of this instruction depends on the viewer's willingness to put that information into practice. Well, people in the ancient world obviously didn't have YouTube. Most of their learning was accomplished by watching someone model the activity in question, or maybe by serving an apprenticeship, or by receiving a letter from a distant instructor. So James wrote this letter to the Jewish Christians who were caught up in the social tensions of mid-first century, where there were outbreaks of violence and insurrection taking place. And the problem before the church in this time of uncertainty can be summed up like this: how do we remain faithful, a faithful Christian community in the midst of this time of trial and temptation? And so James wrote to encourage his brothers and sisters and to give them some instruction on how to navigate these difficult times. First, faithfulness must be practiced. This letter reads like a series of random tutorial videos on the Christian life. But in this section, James made clear that no amount of instruction matters unless you put it into practice. You've got to put it into practice. James wanted the church, you see, to become experts, not only in hearing the instruction, but doing the instruction as well. Blessed is anyone who endures temptation. Such a one has withstood the test and will receive the crown of life that the Lord promised to those who love Him. Verse 12 of that chapter. James saw the current situation as a time of testing for the Christian community. but also an opportunity to demonstrate faithfulness. Secondly, faithfulness will often be challenged or tested. For James, this kind of testing was not something that God had thrown down in front of his people to break them or make them feel terrible, but it was rather a gift that God had given his people. A chance to shine in the midst of a dark world as a community of the new creation that God had brought forth in the death and the resurrection of his Son Jesus. Also, faithfulness is rooted in the trustworthiness of God. In the Greco-Roman world, many people consulted astrology and the alignment of the stars as a kind of first-century YouTube to help you determine your course of action on a particular day. But I still know some folks who will not put the paper down without reading the astrology tables. James has called the church to remember that they have been given the perfect gift of God, the Father of lights, and the one who actually created the stars in the first place. Unlike the changeable nature of events in the present world, there is no variation or shadow due to change in God's nature. God is the only reliable source of information for the church, which God created in fulfillment of his own purposes and birthed by the word of truth. The only birth that matters for James is the one that happens when we are born anew by God and become the first fruits of God's new creation. Faithfulness is also grounded in the Word. With that word of truth in mind, James turns to the problem at hand. And he lays down a quick take on how to manage oneself while the world seems to be spinning out of control. You know, it's tempting to give in to anger. It's tempting to give in to revenge. It's tempting to spew forth nasty words. And while there are a ton of instructional videos on YouTube, there are also plenty of folks who use that venue to rant and rave and spew venom about some person, some cause or issue. Some of it's horrible. It's terrible. James would say, however, that this is like trying to deal with a problem without taking the time to read the directions first. He says, let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. James instructs his brothers and sisters to get rid of that kind of reactivity and to instead welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save souls. The same word of truth that gives new birth also guides the words and the actions of the one whom God has saved. Faith puts the word in the demonstrable and visible action. So how does the word get activated in one's life? How does the word get activated in your life, in my life? James says you have to practice it. For it to get activated, you have to practice it. Be doers of the word, he says, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. You see, the purpose of receiving instruction, receiving the word of truth, is to put that information into practice. If you watch a YouTube video on how to lay laminate flooring and I never pulled out my tools to get to work putting what I learned to use, I'd still be stuck with an old floor. And I need to follow along step by step with the video. On the other hand, if you just watch the video and say, yeah, I'll get back to that sometime. If I did that, I would quickly forget everything I learned by watching the video. And James says the same thing. Happens when we only hear the Word of God and we don't put that Word into practice. When we fail to take the Word that we've received and put it instantly into practice, then we forget who God has created us to be and our vocation as people created for God's purposes. If, on the other hand, we keep our focus on the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere in the midst of trial, being hearers and doers, we'll be blessed in our doing. In fact, it's the doing of the Word that matters most of all to James. Now, I'm not speaking about works righteousness here. I don't even want to get into a discussion about that. But I do know this. As disciples of Christ, we're called to bear fruit. And finally, faithfulness is easier when we're in the fellowship of a community. Some YouTube tutorials are hard to follow. Try learning to tie a tie by watching a video or a diagram on how to do it. I dare you, try to watch a video on how to tie a tie and then do it. It's hard to do. Because that mirror image forces you to do everything backwards. To tie a tie properly, and my dad about threw his hands up in the air and gave up on me. To learn to tie a tie effectively, you need someone standing beside you to show you how, guiding your fingers and helping you to develop that internal memory of the process until it becomes second nature. Now, I don't know whether it's because of old age or what it is, but sometimes I get in front of the mirror on Sunday morning, get ready to tie that tie. I go, what? You know, I really have to think about it. You know, brother. Yeah, I really have to think about what flops over which and which way it goes. You know, then I think, you can do this. You know, well, you do it till it becomes second nature, and the same is true for real religion, James says. It's not simply about running at the mouth or posting on social media one's faith as a matter of intellectual belief, nor is it lashing out at those who might be challenging. That's not real religion. James says religion that is pure and undefiled before God, on the other hand, is religion that is demonstrated in practice. Practice that comes as second nature to those who have internalized the word of truth. It's a religion that cares for the most vulnerable, the widows and the orphans, and keeps oneself unstained by the word. It's religion, in other words, that uses the model of Jesus for both its belief and its practice. the model of Jesus. YouTube can't teach you to be a follower of Jesus. It can't. Oh, sure, it can teach you the principles of discipleship, but to really learn it, to be a follower of Jesus, you have to have someone willing to live it out in front of you and guide you along the way. Information alone, folks, won't get it. It takes imitation as well. That's why we need a community of faith to guide us and to give us examples for putting the words into action. I learned to lay laminate flooring by watching a video. And by my friend Rich putting that video into action. See, he'd done it. That's why I said, hey Rich, can you come up some Saturday? Yeah, I'll be up. And so for 11 hours, we laid laminate flooring. It was watching that video, but more importantly, it was watching my friend Rich put that video into action, putting those words into action. Seth's thinking about putting new laminate flooring in his living room now. He said, Dad. I said, don't worry, Seth, I know how to do it now, brother. I said, you pull up a YouTube video, watch it. I got the tools. I'll be over. Don't bring your saw. He says, I've got one. Okay? Learning to be a disciple is about hearing the word of truth, but it's also about seeing the word put into practice. May we be motivated to take the instruction we've been given by the word of truth and the examples of the disciples around us and put them to use in making more disciples for Jesus Christ. May it be so for you, and may it be so for me. May it be so for this body, the church that gathers here in Glendale.